I got a call out of the blue from Phil, and it almost didn't seem real. Sean's been in a motorcycle accident. He's in the hospital. It's serious.
We were immediately extremely worried. I think I knew it was a motorcycle thing too, so that was, extremely concerning.
And then it was just like waiting, praying, hoping, just kind of like looking at Sean lying there in the hospital, like for signs of movement, something, because at that point he was in a coma.
Robin, who's an ICU nurse, started doing research on that. They told us what kind of an injury it was, and so she started doing research and asking some of her friends, and I think she ended up talking to one of the surgeons who said that he had a 1% chance of waking up from the coma.
So the question is, does he come out of it or not? And the hard part is when the doctors don't know, and they're like throwing their hands up and saying, well, it's a waiting game. We don't know. So then we're just really watching for any signs of life, any movement. Come on, Sean, wake up, So that was the hardest part, is seeing him wanting to come out of it, but not able to, Day 1, day 2, day 3, yeah.
And so we visited and just saw him laid out there, and it was pretty heartbreaking to see, and extremely worrisome and concerning. And I mean, we really thought we might lose our buddy and bandmate and friend.
Parts of him are broken, parts of him are being restrained, parts of him are being carefully held in place, tubes, wires, all of it. And post-accident, he's swelling up too, so he just doesn't, look like himself. But I think we all knew he's a fucking drummer and a motorcycle rider, so we knew he had some fight in him. And I think you could see that the fight was still in him, even when we didn't know what was going to come of all of this,
And a few days later, he started kind of coming out of it, which we could kind of see. His eyes would flicker, and he would respond a tiny bit or move a finger in a response to somebody, and it was just very minimal stuff, but huge in the sense that we were like, okay, he's still with us. He's still in there, and there's hope.
It was like Sean woke up. We're like, what? Yeah. So we're going to the hospital, and everything's at like the most basic square one, which is like he wakes up, he goes to sleep, wakes up, goes to sleep. And at some point he could start, recognizing you in the room, or like, moving a finger, or he could whisper, and we could get really close and sort of, lobby some questions and get some answers, even if we didn't quite understand what he was saying. So it was just like slow, visit after visit, and then finally being able to communicate a little more, or like identifying like, oh, he wants the pictures from across the room, so we'll bring those, hold them up,
At some point, he started to kind of really make eye contact with people and like be able to kind of nod in agreement or no, or communicate yes and no and some of that kind of stuff. And so we started to get really excited and encouraged about it.
So it was just the long, slow process to like when we're going to have like fully functioning person in the room to like find out, what he knows, remembers, things like that.
He had a lot of visitors and people that really cared, that showed up for him, and were just really, trying to send positive energy. I don't know what else any of us could really do, and just be support for family and friends and each other.
There you go. A little further. I'm going to make you stretch here.
That was your password, right? So that you drive over.
Tiring. Okay, good.
I really feel like it was Phil pushing it.
We were like, well, let's just get Sean playing drums because it'll probably be good for his recovery. The hand-eye coordination and just sort of that getting back to things that you remember in muscle memory and intrinsic subconscious type of memory. We're like, let's tap into that.
Like, this is going to be good for his mind and his body. So, we sat him up in the hospital room, gave him a drum pad and some drumsticks. And the funny thing is, of course, he's got it in his body and his mind, all those years of drumming. So he's like, yeah, I want to do this, but I don't. And we hand him the sticks. And he's like, you know, he's going.
I raise a glass and make
And this was true for the whole first year, whether we were practicing in a hospital bed or, you know, as it graduated, was that like at the beginning of a song, he'd be like, I have no idea how to play this song. And Phil would say, okay, well, count it off and let's see what happens. And sure enough, once he counted it off, he was like right in form, right on time, knew everything. And we'd end the song and be like, okay, let's run it again. And he's like, okay, how does this song start? So it's like he doesn't know until his body's doing it, and then he fucking knows it. When that first practice happened in the hospital room, it was like, oh, the magic is available. Here it is. It's like, that's all it took was sitting him up and giving him a drum pad. That was like, okay, now it's just a matter of time. Get you to learn how to walk again, learn how to use a drum pedal, and away we go.
The elasticity of some humans and the way that some superhuman people can somehow recover from these traumatic things and become their normal self again. And Sean's there. He's back.
I didn't just like wake up like, oh, I'm awake, everybody, I'm awake. It's a long process to wake up, I would say. And I ultimately woke up with what the medical community refers to as a TBI, a traumatic brain injury, which I had never heard of before receiving one. The list of potential symptoms when you have a TBI are lengthy and horrible. I feel very, very fortunate because my symptoms are relatively few. Ultimately, everything's always just a tiny bit too bright to me. Like, not too bright, like I need sunglasses, because that doesn't really help, but just overexposed, I should say. Number one. Number two, I have severe amnesia, which is weird because we all know what amnesia is, but when you have it, it's something that is just crazy. Number one, so I have amnesia, I have vision issues, my sense of smell, my sense of taste, and ultimately I was a tiny bit dizzy at first. That took some doing to get my balance back, but you know, here I am. We're coming up on 2 years. I can walk, you know, I can drive, I can go to the bathroom and shower, and yeah, so yeah. I love my band a lot. I love my band. And so Phil and Dave both came to the hospital before I woke up from my coma, and then after, and we practiced. That's the thing, is that ultimately it's good. To me, it's great that I, you know, still can play, you know, that I can walk, that I can do all this other stuff. Tennis Pro is taking a much bigger seat in my life than it used to. And I've always loved being in Tennis Pro, but like, I would tell you that moving forward, I've got a little extra time on my hands. So, yeah.
I think there's, you know, we've been together as a band long enough to have gone through all kinds of stages, you know, getting older, going through different things that are happening in the scene, where, you know, we're the cool kids, we're the hated kids. We've gone through all kinds of stuff. We've had kids, we've raised kids. So I feel like we found a new little reason to fight. Rock and roll is like rebellion and finding a reason to fight. So, you know, hey, give us another reason to fight, and that will get us back in the studio, back on stage. So it's just a reminder of like what it's all about, which is you've got an instrument and a reason to fight, and then you make it loud and say what you want to say.